All right, so today we're going to dive into a philosophy that really pushes the idea of individual rights to the absolute limit, libertarianism. We're going to break down its core ideas, its most controversial claims, and the one powerful principle that holds the whole thing together. Let's get right into it. So to really get a handle on libertarianism, we first need to talk about the philosophy it's often pushing back against, utilitarianism. You've probably heard of it. It's basically the idea that the right thing to do is whatever brings about the greatest good for the greatest number of people. Sounds pretty reasonable, right? But as you'll see, it can lead to some pretty uncomfortable places. And this leads us to a really fundamental question. If your only goal is to make the majority happy, what's to stop you from sacrificing one person's rights or even their life for that greater good? This exact problem, this nagging ethical dilemma, is what libertarianism was built to answer. Okay, let's picture this classic thought experiment. A doctor has 5 patients. All of them are about to die. They each need a different organ transplant. Then, a perfectly healthy patient walks in for a routine checkup, and he happens to be a perfect match for all 5. Now, a hardcore utilitarian might look at the numbers and say, well, it's 1 life versus 5, that's a net gain of 4 lives. But wait, our gut, our intuition just screams, no, that's wrong. You can't just treat that healthy person like a walking bag of spare parts. But why not? Libertarianism has a very clear answer. And this is exactly where libertarianism steps in with an answer. It's what philosophers call a strong theory of rights. And what it says is that there are just certain lines you cannot cross, certain things you can't do to a person, no matter how great the outcome might be for everyone else. It puts the individual front and center. So at its absolute core, libertarianism says that you, me, every single one of us has this fundamental right to liberty. We get to choose how we live our lives. Why? Because we're not just tools for society to use for some greater purpose. We are separate, individual beings worthy of respect. We are, as they say, ends in ourselves. And that idea, that is a huge deal. It's totally radical. As the famous libertarian philosopher Robert Nozick put it, our individual rights are so powerful, so strong and far-reaching that they force us to ask a really jarring question. What, if anything, can the government even do? It completely flips our whole idea of government on its head. Okay, so what does this actually look like for a government? Well, if the main job of the state is just to protect our liberty, then its mission becomes way less about what it should do and a whole lot more about what it absolutely cannot do. Well, libertarians argue a just government is defined by 3 big no's. First, no paternalist laws. That means no seatbelt laws, no motorcycle helmet laws. If I want to take a risk, that's my choice, not the government's. Second, no morals legislation. The state has no business telling people how to live or promoting one set of virtues over another. And third, and this is the one that really gets people talking, no redistribution of wealth. You got it. That last point, that's the big one. This is where you see the sparks fly, because for a libertarian, taxing the rich to give to the poor isn't just a policy debate. To them, it's a profound violation of individual rights. In their view, it's basically a form of theft. Now, to really get what's at stake here, I want you to look at this number, $150. Seems kind of random, right? What on earth could that possibly represent? At the height of his success, Bill Gates was earning over $150 per second. Just let that sink in for a moment. It literally would not have been worth his time to stop and pick up a $100 bill if he saw it lying on the street. So here's the big question. Is it morally wrong to tax that kind of massive wealth to help people who are struggling, people who need food or housing or education? I think most of us would immediately say, of course not. They need the money more. But the libertarian stands firm and says, yes, it is wrong. They see it as coercion, as a violation of Bill Gates's rights. So let's break down this whole debate. The libertarian claim is simple. Taxation is theft. Then you have the common objections. Look, the poor need the money more, we consent to taxes by voting in a democracy, and hey, the rich owe a debt to the society that helped them succeed. So how on earth do libertarians defend their view against these pretty powerful arguments? Well, it all comes down to one single really powerful concept. So what's holding this whole argument together? What's the foundation for all these pretty radical claims? Well, it's this incredibly powerful and actually pretty intuitive idea called self-possession. Okay, check this out. The philosopher Robert Nozick laid out this really provocative chain of reasoning. He says, look, taxing your earnings, that's basically the same as taking your labor. If the government takes, say, a third of your income in taxes, it's essentially claiming a third of your work hours. That's forced labor. And what is forced labor? Well, he argues it's a form of slavery. It means the state has a property claim on you, that it partly owns you. And that right there, that's the absolute heart of it. The principle of self-possession. It's the simple, powerful idea that you own yourself. Your body, your mind, your talents, the work you do with your hands, it all belongs to you, and only you. Not to society, not to the community, and definitely not to the government. This is why the doctor can't harvest the healthy patient's organs. That patient owns themselves.
But wait, it's not that simple, right? There's a really strong counterargument here. A student named Victoria, in the very lecture this is based on, made this fantastic point. She said, maybe by the very act of living in a society, by benefiting from all its structures and protections, maybe we implicitly agree to give up some of that absolute self-ownership. Maybe we don't have total self-possession after all. And so when you strip everything else away, it really all boils down to this one question for you. Do you own yourself? Completely? Without exception? How you answer that question determines whether libertarianism is the ultimate defense of human freedom or a deeply flawed idea of what we owe to each other as members of a society. What do you think?